Hey, JK here. I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me. Tonight we're going to make a trip back to Ohio to visit the third place NL Central team, the Cincinnati Reds. With a record of 82-80, they had a negative 38 run differential, but they have a very talented, high potential core, especially in the infield here on this team. Some of the guys who led the different categories are part of that youth movement. So we'll go ahead and get to it. Spencer Steer led the team in at-bats, hits, doubles, home runs, RBIs, total bases, and walks, while one of my favorite players, Jonathan India, led the team in runs. Mr. Will Benson led the team in triples, while Ellie De La Cruz led the team in stolen bases. And he led the team in strikeouts. Another youngster with lots of potential and has shown that he absolutely deserved to be in the big leagues is Matt McLain, who led the team in average, on-base percentage, on-base plus slugging, and slugging. Matt McLain did everything he needed to do last year in his bid for NL Rookie of the Year to solidify his spot this year in a very crowded infield. However, I don't think anyone's going to scoff at a .290 batting average with 16 home runs and 14 stolen bases with second and shortstop eligibility. However, with an oblique injury, that could cause some concern if that does creep back up, which is what cut short his NL Rookie of the Year candidacy last year. I do hope that he is going to be able to get his strikes down and his walks up, but in any case, he will absolutely be someone in your lineups if you are going to target someone, especially for the hitter's ballpark of Great American Ballpark. Now, we talked about Jonathan India before. He is one of my favorite players, and the a former NL Rookie of the Year is the odd man out in this very crowded infield lineup. So he has taken reps and had gameplay at the outfield just to make sure he gets some bats in this lineup. So with his plantar fasciitis, which if you don't know what that is, a bundle of muscles, tendons, ligaments in the foot right in the middle that can cause pain. Plantar fasciitis derailed the last few years for Mr. India. However, I don't think anyone is going to complain about him still playing 119 games with 17 home runs and 14 stolen bases. Now, I don't think anyone's excited about the .244 batting average, but he's still contributing in other ways. So they have to find a way to get his bat in the lineup. And if they don't, then they're going to potentially trade him. And he is a very valuable trade chip, despite the injury history. But a move away from Great American Ballpark is definitely not good for him. But hopefully, for my sake, because he is on some of my fantasy teams, he will stay at Great American Ballpark and he will find some room in that lineup. Speaking of finding room in the lineup, Spencer Steer does everything he can to make sure that his bat's in there, as he has first base, second base, third base, shortstop, and outfield eligibility. Now, we know he's not going to play certain positions because they have guys solidified there, not penciled in, but inked in, tattooed in, if you would. However, Spencer Steer is going to be manning the outfield position, or at least one of the outfield positions for the Reds this year. Now, he can spell some of the guys at first, third, second. However, Spencer Steer going to have his bat in the lineup. Someone else who's going to be in the lineup, and I think they have him inked in, is Ellie De La Cruz. Now, we talked about him leading the team in stolen bases. He had 35. He also led the team in strikeouts, and that's not really good because that could come back to bite him. Because in order to steal bases, you have to get on base. If he's not going to be getting on base, he's not going to be stealing any bases. Therefore, unless he hits a home run, it's going to be hard for him to have value. Now, it's crazy to think because he's super hyped coming out of the farm system, and the Reds want to make him their starting shortstop because he has shortstop eligibility and third eligibility. However, they brought in Jeimer Candelario to play third, and with the recent departure / suspension of Noelvi Marte, that solidified Strand at first, Jeimer at third, and Ellie at shortstop. However, I do believe that more than anything, Ellie has to work on his batting average, especially against lefties, because he had a 40% strikeout rate against them last year. Now, another guy we talked about coming in with a lot of hype, not as much hype as Ellie. However, Christian Encarnacion Strand was caught up last year and took off. He had power numbers in the minor leagues, and the thought is he's going to have power numbers here in the majors as well. However, he is also replacing Joey Votto, who's beloved and had been there his entire career. So, now he's back in Toronto. He's back home. He's Canadian, so all's good there. If Encarnacion Strand does slip, they do have Jamer who can move over. They do have Spencer Steer who can come to first. And that way, that will leave a spot open for Jake Fraley, who is going to likely be a platoon against righties because he had 15 home runs and 21 stolen bases, so he's got power and speed. So it looks like both Ellie and Jake do much better against righties than they do against lefties. That could be a problem, especially if you have a lefty-heavy pitching rotation coming up on your schedule. However, the pitching that they have coming in, we're going to get to the stat leaders, but Andrew Abbott is someone who did lead the team in ERA in his very short time there. He started 21 games. But in any case, that's someone I'm super excited about coming into his sophomore year. Some of the other leaders for pitching included Graham Ashcraft, who led in games started, quality starts, losses, and innings pitched. Alexis Diaz led the team in wins and saves. That is not a good duo of categories to lead. Lucas Sims and Ian Gibaut, I think it's Gibaut, led the team in holds. They both had the same number, 23. Hunter Green led the team in strikeouts. He is a flamethrower, but not always sure where the ball is going. And finally, Brandon Williamson led the team in whip. Now, Brandon Williamson and Andrew Abbott are guys that are going to be on the back end of your lineup, like mid to back end of the lineup. However, they're obviously good enough to lead in certain categories where they limit base runners and also limit runs. So I do want to talk about Andrew Abbott. He did start 21 games. He had 9 quality starts and 8 wins. He pitched 109 innings and struck out 120 batters. So he came up as someone who's like, hey man, we really need help with the lineup, with this rotation, and he is now one of the prized pieces in that rotation. However, they still do have him penciled in as the back end. He could very well fit into the middle, but in any case, Andrew Abbott is definitely going to be someone who you want to look at in your fantasy drafts. Someone else you're going to look at, Hunter Green. Now, again, this guy can absolutely throw some heat. He had 112 innings pitched last year and 152 strikeouts. That's phenomenal. However, he also did have a 4.7 plus, 4.8 ERA, and a 1.3 plus whip. That's not great. He has quite a few walks, and that's going to come back to bite him in the butt, especially pitching at home in Great American Ballpark. Graham Ashcraft did lead the team in several categories. However, he fell off the face of the earth after his 6th start in the major leagues, or at least 6th start in 2023. Those first 6, he had an ERA of 2. He had 27 strikeouts. Then, again, he fell off the face of the earth. And unfortunately, he ended with a 4.7 ERA and like a 1.4 whip. That's not great. That's not where you want him to be, especially if he's leading your team in innings pitched. By leading team in innings pitched with an ERA close to 5 and a whip that high, you're probably going to lead in losses, which he did. Hopefully, the 3 of those guys, Abbott, Ashcraft, and Green, get together, figure out how to get Ks up even more. That would obviously be for Hunter Green. Get ERA down. That would be for Andrew Abbott. And get more innings pitched. That would be from Graham Ashcraft. Talk about more innings pitched. We definitely need to see, as Major League Baseball fans, but also, I'm not a Reds fan, but Reds fans want to see Nick Lodolo pitch more innings. He only pitched 34 innings last year, but he struck out 47. He also walked quite a bit, had an ERA that was 6 plus and a 1.75 whip. That's not sexy, that's not exciting, that's not what you want. However, Nick Lodolo did have tibia fracture, so cut him a teeny tiny bit of slack because he was literally pitching with a broken leg. So we'll cut you a little bit of slack there. I'm hoping he can come back at some point in time this year. He will absolutely provide a boost for this lineup because some of the guys they have, obviously we've talked about Ashcraft, lets too many people go, whether just walks or hits. We do have some flamethrowers like we talked about, the Reds do, but Nick Lodolo could absolutely help this team. Now, as we get to the bullpen, Alexis Diaz did lead the team in wins and saves. That's not exciting. That's not what you want to hear because that either means he blew a bunch of saves or the setup men, we talked about Gibaut and Lucas Sims, couldn't hold the lead, gave up the lead, and then the Reds just happened to score in the 9th inning or whatever inning it was, and Diaz got the win. Whatever the case, it's not good for the bullpen. So I wouldn't go for anyone in the bullpen except for Diaz. And even then, I'm not confident on him because if he did blow tons of saves, then he might get you wins, losses, but that ERA and that whip is going to go sky high. And if he's only pitching a third of an inning, 2/3 of an inning, 1 inning at most, yeah, giving up 2-3 earned runs not going to look good, especially if you're in a weekly league. Something I do have some faith in is the additions. They did bring Nick Martinez. I'm not faithful in him. I'm not confident in him. He's not a starting pitcher you want. But I am kind of on the fence about Frankie Montas, because he did have a great year his last year in Oakland, then went to New York. Didn't do well at all, except for like that last little bit, mainly because he was hurt. He showed he could throw like 3 or 4 innings, something like that. Done decently well so far in spring training. However, if we get back to the Oakland A's version, when's the last time you ever heard someone say, hey, I want you to go back to when you were good with the Oakland A's? If we can get that version, then I feel like, and by we I mean fantasy owners, because again, I'm not a Reds fan, I'm a Yankees fan. If the Reds can get that version of Montas, I think they'll be good. Money well spent. They also brought in Brent Suter. Brent Suter may not be the sexiest name on this list. However, when you talk about some of the guys who are giving up home runs, giving up walks, giving up hits in general, they may not be every 5-day type of guys. They might be, hey, let's get you a break, a longer period of time between your pitches. Brent Suter started for the Brewers. Didn't do great, but the Brewers have been decent the past few years. So Brent Suter is absolutely someone who can come in and be in the rotation. The one I'm most excited about is Jeimer Candelario. This fella started his career in the Detroit Tigers organization before they, became decent. He was wasting away. Then he went to Chicago, got to a much better team. Not exciting, but better. Now he's with a team that is great when it comes to hitting in the ballpark, and also in a division that has, I won't say bad pitching, but pitching that isn't exactly the sexiest, and he's going to be able to hit. So in any case, he's in the same division that he was with the Cubs, but I digress. I'm looking forward to him because he can play third, he can play first. So if there are any more suspensions, Noelvi Marte, or if there are any more injuries, whatever happens, then Jeimer Candelario can move around, Spencer Steer can move around, Jake Fraley. They got a few pieces. Now, speaking of pieces, some of the ones they let go included Hunter Renfroe, who was an outfielder and also had first base eligibility. He was consistently inconsistent. He was consistently going to get you double-digit home runs, but not necessarily get you a batting average above 240, 250, which that's not bad. But the thing is, I guess they didn't want to pay him, or he didn't do as well with them. I would really hate the fact if I let Renfroe go and he does well at Kauffman Stadium with the Kansas City Royals, because that's not a hitter-friendly park. Because imagine what he could have done at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. So again, I think that was silly of the Reds not to bring him back. Another loss, Noelvi Marte lost for 80 games. He's not going to have a spot in the rotation for first or DH or wherever he can play, because I'm sure if Strand is doing his thing, Spencer Steer doing his thing, Jeimer doing his thing, they're not going to want to mess that up. It's already hard enough for the former NL Rookie of the Year, Jonathan India, to get at-bats, much less a guy that's going to miss half the season and going to have to get his timing down. So, someone else they lost, Luke Weaver, not really a big deal. However, he's with the Yankees now. I don't know how I like that. Emilio Pagan, he was a bullpen guy, talking about how shaky this bullpen is. I think he could be an asset. And Harrison Bader, again, not really sure they're missing anything with him, another former Yankee. But in any case, that is going to do it for the Cincinnati Reds. Their offense definitely has some pieces. They have a crowded infield, and hopefully India is going to get some at-bats because, again, former NL Rookie of the Year, even with issues with his feet, plantar fasciitis, he is getting runs. He's getting stolen bases. He's squashing the bug. He's sending that ball out of the ballpark. Granted, Great American Ballpark is his ballpark. I definitely think they need to get his bat in the lineup. As far as the outfield goes, they have Will Benson. They have Spencer Steer. They have Jake Fraley. So a lot of good talent. And someone I didn't even talk about, Tyler Stevenson behind the plate. He is very versatile, very underrated, and I think he's going to be able to step up and do even better this year with the help around him. The pitching I'm not as excited about, especially the bullpen. If Lodolo can come back, if Hunter Green can throw strikes, even more strikes, instead of balls, if Ashcraft can stop giving up runs, and finally, if Abbott can stay healthy, that will be a pretty good rotation, and we'll actually get some play for that bullpen. Otherwise, they might hit 500, but they're not going to compete for the Central, unfortunately. But in any case, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the second place NL Central team, the Chicago Cubs. I'm looking forward to seeing you, having you here with me to talk about the Cubs tomorrow. This is Jake Cake, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.